That's the truth. Mr. President, the Russian defense industry right now, is heavily engaged in producing strategic nuclear deterrent forces. But this is a huge commitment of resources to Russia. Um, we, you know, if we were to take a realistic look at our needs for strategic deterrence, as opposed to continuing this policy of, preemptive nuclear strike, we could probably save a couple $1 trillion over the next 30 years by just downsizing and limiting the modernization to that which is essential, and work with the Russians to bring arms control back into the mix. But, Mr. President, we have to approach this from the standpoint of parity. It has to be mutually acceptable. We have to understand that we need to make some fundamental changes in our nuclear doctrine, because the concept of America being nuclear dominant is over. And if we want to continue to pretend that we're nuclear dominant, then we'll be engaged in an arms race that we can't afford. We're not going to win, and probably result in a nuclear conflict where everybody dies. This kind of realistic conversation that needs to be had with Trump. And somebody has to tell Trump when he throws a temper tantrum and say, shut the up, President. Mr. President, stop throwing a temper tantrum. That ain't going to change it. You can fire me, but you hired me to tell you the truth. I'm telling you the truth. And you losing your cool because the facts don't suit your fantasy is your problem, not my problem. I'm not going to change the intelligence to, calm you down. You got to be an adult about this. But nobody has that conversation. Nobody has that conversation.
This is not just a war. This is a catastrophe engineered by those who claim to be saving Ukraine. Over 1 million lives lost. And for what? The truth is brutal, and Scott Ritter isn't holding back. But here's the terrifying part. What if the next leader of the free world refuses to face reality? What if the intelligence he gets is warped beyond recognition? This isn't just about Ukraine anymore. This is about the world hurtling toward a crisis no one is prepared for. Scott Ritter unleashes a scathing critique, arguing that the West, not Russia, bears the blame for the staggering loss of Ukrainian lives. He dismisses Donald Trump's claims of being able to end the war with a phone call, calling him a powerless figure in a system that feeds leaders a distorted version of reality. Ritter warns that unless American leadership begins to accept hard truths about Russia's military stance, nuclear strategy, and NATO's expansion, the world is on a path to disaster. The stakes? Nothing less than global stability. As we shift from analyzing Scott Ritter's perspective, we now turn to a far more urgent and complex reality unfolding on the ground. The war in Ukraine is not just being fought with bullets and missiles. It is also a war of politics, diplomacy, and strategic maneuvering. Behind every military movement, every shell fired, and every counteroffensive launched, there is a deeper game at play, one where negotiations, financial deals, and high-level agreements dictate the course of battle. And right now, the Russians are playing this game masterfully. The past 12 hours have been nothing short of critical. Major developments have unfolded across diplomatic and military fronts, setting the stage for decisions that could alter the course of this war. February 27th marked a day of intense political maneuvering, while February 28th promises a high-stakes meeting between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and U.S. President Donald Trump. What is at stake? A deal over minerals, but more importantly, the future of Ukraine's war effort. Zelensky has confirmed his plans to visit the U.S. after a crucial stop in London. But why London first? Because British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is already in Washington, engaged in discussions with Trump. Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron has recently had his own talks with Trump about security guarantees, an issue that lies at the heart of this entire geopolitical struggle. The West is scrambling to find a coherent policy on Ukraine, while Russia watches closely, ready to exploit any divisions. Trump's position on Ukraine has raised eyebrows. He has openly stated that Ukraine needs to forget about NATO because, according to him, NATO was the catalyst for the war. This alone is a major win for Moscow, as it reinforces Russia's narrative that NATO expansion provoked the invasion. Furthermore, Trump has declared that Europe, not the United States, should bear the responsibility of providing security guarantees for Ukraine. Now, as Starmer meets Trump, a crucial question looms. Will the U.S. provide security guarantees to European forces deployed in Ukraine? Trump's likely answer is a firm no. This presents a massive dilemma for both the UK and France. If they decide to deploy troops in Ukraine without American backing, those forces will be vulnerable to Russian attack. The reality is harsh. Without U.S. guarantees, European troops stationed in Ukraine would be little more than sitting ducks. And Zelensky knows this. His demand is clear. He wants Western troops on Ukrainian soil before any ceasefire is declared. But this is an impossible ask. No Western power is willing to commit boots on the ground without ironclad security guarantees, and Trump is making it clear that such guarantees won't come from Washington. This deadlock plays directly into Russia's hands. While Western leaders debate and delay, Russia is executing a well-coordinated strategy to weaken Ukraine's offensive capabilities. On the ground, Moscow is shifting its focus back to key battlefronts, particularly in the Zaporizhzhia region, a sector that had seen little activity over the past year, but is now a hotspot of renewed conflict. Russian forces have made strategic gains near settlements like Pyatakatki, with reports indicating they have taken full control of the village. Ukrainian troops in the area have been subjected to relentless Russian bombardment, with heavy artillery strikes and aerial assaults causing significant damage. Reports have surfaced of Ukrainian soldiers surrendering under the sheer weight of Russian firepower. At the same time, Russia has launched a devastating campaign targeting Ukraine's FPV drone operators. These highly trained specialists are crucial for reconnaissance and precision strikes, yet Russia has systematically hunted them down using advanced Iskander missile strikes. One such attack in northwestern Zaporizhzhia reportedly wiped out up to 100 drone operators in a single strike, a catastrophic loss for Ukraine's tactical capabilities. But the Russian offensive isn't limited to Zaporizhzhia. In the Sumy region, a similar pattern is emerging. Ukrainian drone forces were caught deploying a large number of FPV drones, likely preparing for an attack in the Bryansk direction. Before they could act, Russian forces located their position and unleashed cluster munitions, destroying yet another key Ukrainian drone hub. Beyond the front lines, Russia's disruption tactics extend to economic warfare. One of the most pressing issues in the upcoming Zelensky-Trump meeting is Ukraine's financial survival. Zelensky has made it clear he refuses to pay even 10 cents to settle Ukraine's debt in the upcoming mineral deal. This indicates just how dire Ukraine's financial situation has become. The war is bleeding the country dry, and without continued Western financial support, its ability to sustain military operations will rapidly deteriorate. Russia understands this and is working to strangle Ukraine economically. The ongoing U.S.-Russia meeting in Istanbul is a crucial component of this effort. While Ukraine may not be officially on the agenda, it is undoubtedly a hidden focal point. By leveraging diplomatic backchannels, Moscow is attempting to carve out new economic and geopolitical advantages, while the West remains entangled in internal disputes. As February 28th approaches, the stakes couldn't be higher. If Zelensky fails to secure firm commitments from Trump and other Western leaders, Ukraine's military and economic situation will grow even more precarious. Meanwhile, Russian forces continue to push forward, exploiting every delay, every hesitation, and every political disagreement among Ukraine's allies. The Zaporizhzhia region could soon become the site of an even larger conflict, as both Ukrainian and Russian forces prepare for what might be a decisive battle. Ukraine desperately needs to secure its hold over key territories. But Russian preemptive strikes and relentless missile attacks are crippling its ability to launch a coordinated counteroffensive. On the diplomatic front, Zelensky's refusal to compromise on financial issues and security guarantees may leave him with few options. If he holds out for a Western troop deployment that may never come, Ukraine risks losing crucial time that Russia is using to solidify its battlefield gains. And then there's the wild card, Trump. If his stance on Ukraine remains as dismissive as it has been so far, Kyiv could find itself facing the most difficult phase of this war yet, a future where Western support begins to erode, where financial aid dwindles, and where Ukraine is forced to fight a relentless Russian war machine with fewer and fewer resources. The next 24 hours will be absolutely critical for Ukraine. With Zelensky heading to the U.S. and crucial negotiations unfolding behind closed doors, the war is no longer just about weapons and soldiers. It's about money, political will, and strategic alliances. If Ukraine fails to secure firm commitments from its Western partners, the consequences could be severe. Russian forces are already making battlefield gains, and their ability to disrupt Ukrainian operations, whether through military strikes or economic pressure, is proving highly effective. Meanwhile, Trump's stance on Ukraine remains unpredictable. His reluctance to commit U.S. resources or security guarantees sends a dangerous message, not just to Ukraine, but to NATO and the entire international order. If Ukraine's allies begin to waver, it could embolden Moscow to escalate its operations further. This war is at a turning point. Will Ukraine get the support it desperately needs? Or will political divisions and financial hesitations weaken its ability to resist Russian aggression? The decisions made in Washington, London, and Paris over the next few days will shape the future of this war, and potentially the future of Europe itself. What do you think? Will the West stand firm? Or is Ukraine being pushed toward a compromise that favors Russia? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you found this analysis valuable, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. Your support helps us continue bringing you in-depth coverage of the Ukraine war. And don't forget to share this video. More people need to understand the high-stakes game being played behind the scenes. Stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll see you in the next update.